Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Alpensee anniversary tournament. And with these two rounds, I'll have a special guest to present, and that is Webb.
Hi, everyone.
It's great to have you here, Webb. I'm excited to be casting with you as well. And for the moment, as the match is gonna be set up, how have you been enjoying Champions so far? I've had a great time so far.
Yeah, I've had a blast. My favorite team to play so far has been a Gengar Kangaskhan Azumarill team that I've had a lot of fun playing
Ooh.
Master Ball tier, clicking not Perish Song, but rather Belly Drum. Um, that has been my favorite so far, but I've loved seeing all the new and exciting teams and how quickly the meta has developed. It feels like 2014 all over again, and I'm an old man, so it's a blast.
Probably a format that you're familiar with compared to me, who has been just toying around with the megas since I've only started in Sword and Shield. I don't actually know a lot of the megas, so I've been like, oh, I want to try Scissor, oh, I want to try the new stuff as well, like Skarmory too. So I've just been trying around with Rain a bit since that is Basque Legion, obviously in the newer format. You tend to know it a little. You can just slap it on. Rain is pretty easy to start with. Um, yeah, and we've been seeing a lot of rain, sun, and just now even some new megas with like Pinsir and whatnot. Maybe you could even show us or like tell us a bit of like what do you think is an underrated mega right now? What do you think could be a sleeper pick, or what do you even hope to see maybe on the next match?
Oh man, I've seen some good results from Delphox recently, and I think Delphox has been on a lot of people's radars after it won that very first 500-person tour the night after Champions released. I think
Mm.
honestly, the big thing to me, the big story to me of this format so far is just how powerful those big three megas of Gengar, Floette, and Charizard Y have been, and the responses
Mm-hmm.
that people have had to make to those Pokemon. It's been really surprising. I mean, I've seen everything from Mega Aerodactyl to Mega Gengar to Mega Frostlass, um, but those three in particular really stand out. And I think the big story there is just how powerful some of the non-restricted Pokemon are actually. Sneasler is very important. King Gambit is very important. And King Gambit in particular, I feel like is pretty meta-defining in some ways because it gates out megas like Frostlass from having the same success that they might have in other circumstances just by being that powerful steel type with powerful priority. So I'm not going to highlight a mega, but I will note the high usage of King Gambit really makes for an interesting metagame. And really, I mean, it's even really hard for
Mm-hmm.
Gengar, which can't hit it very well itself.
Yeah, but as we are saying this, we are gonna go into our round 7, and it is that double Mega Gengar. So we have one Mega Gengar highlighting that pair song with Viv and the Palafin core as well. There's the combo for the setup. You can just use the pair song next to these Pokemon and just get everyone to perish in 3 turns possibly. But that combo, that is immune to that.
Yeah, and both of these players have lost to Gengar previously today. Viv is on their third win in a row, so they started 4-0, and now they're down 2 games. And Billa just lost in the Gengar mirror, so this is really setting up to be an interesting challenge for both of them. They both probably would have liked to already be in to phase 2 of competition today.
Mm-hmm. I will note that Billa has that double mega compared to Viv, so that Aerodactyl might be even able to put in some work with that dual wing beat into that combo possibly. And we will have to see if you say that Billa has just lost to Gengar Mirror, maybe they have some experience that they can bounce off based off that last game. Maybe it was a similar core that they played against, and they can work with. I do like that Ninetales Alola for Billa's side as well. There is that Parish song Polytoad with the rain, but that snow in response could be really, really helpful. Just getting that Blizzard and Freeze Dry as well helps into the combo again. That Fairy type is really useful too. And I think this might be a really good Aerodactyl Ninetales game. What do you think?
Yeah, the big thing in the Gengar matchup is almost always handling Gengar quickly before it's able to do big damage with Sludge Bomb or Shadow Ball. Things like Scarf Basculegion, Scarf Garchomp, Tailwind plus Charwy, like ways to blow up the Gengar before it can move, really keeps it from being disruptive with moves like Disable. So I think Viv has a good tool there in Palafin, but I agree with you. Aerodactyl would be a great way for Billa to pick up the pace and really push damage through with that White Herb Garchomp that's going to ignore the first Intimidate that Incineroar drops on it. And he really wants to get an early advantage if he goes for that strategy. before the Palafin can get going and start jet punching in rain through his Incineroar, his Aerodactyl, his Gengar. Maybe, as you say, the snow will be a useful countermeasure to that as well later in the game.
Yeah, and if Viv does find themselves to be maybe even overwhelmed by that or worried about that possible tailwind from that Aerodactyl, they could just pick up the pace themselves with that Whimsicott. But we are going to go into the first game of round 7, and it is that Como Incineroar for Billa, while Vivian is leading that Gengar Garchomp. There is the Intimidate going down, but the White Herb obviously restoring the attack back to its normal stage.
And I think we've got our players flipped based on team sheets. It should be Billa on the bottom and Vivian on the top, but that's all right. Let's see, double check. Yeah, so Billa should be the one with an Aerodactyl. Has the Como. Yeah, very interesting start here.
I didn't expect either of these to lead what they have. I expected like the Aerodactyl possibility, but I think that's good. That's the reason I'm casting here, not playing in that win and in right now. As we see that the Garchomp is currently switching out, maybe saying that this position is not for it, and it is that Ninetales that we have talked about coming out to play. As we see that Gengar immediately Mega Evolve here, trapping that Instant Como in.
Yeah, this is the big advantage of these Mega Gengar, is you can lock the Como on board against Ninetales.
Yeah, and we see that Incineroar go for that fake out into the now Ninetales slot. It didn't go for the move. Gengar is going for the Sludge Bomb into the Como, doing a lot of damage as the Como still is able to set up. It's going to lose a bit of its HP for that Omni boost. It is going to go down to his red, but if it is properly trained, it will outspeed both the Ninetales and Gengar. But still,
that's right.
Red HP, not the best state to be in right now.
Not the best, and not the best while Ninetales is immune to clanging scales. Because of that, the Como can't take a double KO here, and if Viv wants to attack, they know that they're trading off that Como right away. Another thing here is this Incineroar is threatening a very powerful, actually very meaningful parting shot into Gengar, who would love to stay on the board and keep the trap on. Importantly, if Como goes down, Vivian hasn't set up their Palafin for later, so we're really going to be asking the question of how effectively they'll be able to end the game. And it looks like we're going right into turn 2 with the Protect.
Yeah, with that Como and that Incineroar both protecting, they don't want to deal with anything that the opposing side, that Billa can throw out, like that Sludge Bomb or that possible Blizzard, the Encore in this case, into the instant, trying to like lock it into the fake out, not allowing it to go for the parting shot. However, this didn't really bring Vivian forward now, did it?
I think the upside, yeah, the double protect is very questionable, or not questionable. The double protect isn't doing anything on the board, and the Encore is still threatened in the instant, but at least it prevents instant from struggling if it gets Encored this turn. So maybe the Como can threaten the Gengar right away, and then Incineroar can at least avoid struggling right away because of the new fake out mechanics. It's a little tricky. I really like this positioning of Encore from Billa, and I really like bringing the Ninetales now, and the question is mostly if Ninetales can take an Aura Sphere.
Because if that Ninetales can't take that Aura Sphere, the Aura Sphere is pretty free to just go into the Ninetales, KO it, and that Incineroar is free to go for an attack into the Gengar. We see the Gengar is still faster than the Como, going for that Sludge Bomb, just KO it straight up. Como is not getting an attack off here, while that Ninetales is locking that Incineroar into that Protect. This is a very bad position for Vivian, because you have a Pokemon trapped in that is going to use Protect for the next 3 turns, while Billa is free to just go for any attack into that other slot, which is the Gengar.
Yeah. Gengar is here, and Gengar is a ghost, and you know what ghosts do. They give you nightmares, and this position is a nightmare for Viv. No question, the Incin can't attack, and it can't switch. And we know that Billa has a very fast Gengar that has Shadow Ball, while Viv's does not, since it's the Perish Song setup. Or, well, no, sorry, Viv's has Shadow Ball, but not Sludge Bomb. My apologies. So, Billa is threatening to one-shot Viv's Gengar before it moves, while the Incin is trapped going for Protect for the next 2 turns. What do you think is going to happen here?
I think it might already come down to some speed ties here and some damage rolls. Depending on how the trainers have trained their Pokemon, Vivian can maybe Vivian could outspeed Billa's side here and possibly one-shot it with Shadow Ball. We will see that Mega Gengar evolving here, just trying to match the pacing of the opposing Mega Gengar here, and we'll see that the Mega Gengar is going, well, we see the Incineroar go for the Protect first, But we'll see that the Mega Gengar is going for the Shadow Ball. It is Vivian's that is going to go first too. And it is going to get that one shot on the Gengar. A very crucial turn here, because now you are free to possibly even switch out that Incineroar the next turn. We see the Ninetales opting for the Freeze Dry into the Gengar, doing almost half, but not quite, and pretty solid damage. But this possibly just brought Vivian really back into this game with that winning that speed tie possibly.
I mean, Vivian was doomed if it didn't happen, and somewhat still in the game because it did. That freeze dry was there to cover for the Palafin or Politoed coming in, given that Gengar can switch while trapped because it's a ghost type, and then now because of a shadow tag, but only before it Mega because it's a ghost type. This is fascinating. This Garchomp is really the secondary menace of Billa's team. While Ninetales can't switch, Earthquake is threatening KOs on both of these Pokemon, and Incineroar just succeeded in a Protect. This is a big challenge for Vivian to overcome, even after winning the speed interaction between the Gengars.
But the one advantage you have is the fact that you can now switch out that Incineroar and bring it back online later. It is that Whimsicott in the back, which is possibly the Pokemon you want to see here to maybe get that Tailwind up, to have that Moonblast into the Garchomp as an option. The Ninetales on Billa's side, however, is opting for that Blizzard. The Gengar on the opposing side obviously protected, so it's not going to take damage. That Whimsicott is taking a lot of damage, however. It is in the yellow now, and it will have to take this follow-up stomping. Is it going to take it? It's gonna tank it. It's living with that 28 HP. The snow stopping this turn. It's been 5 turns of snow. Whoa.
That's actually really surprising. Typically, Whimsicott in Regulation MA are Focus Sash and not very bulky and pretty offensive, but on this Perish Trap team, we see that Vivian has given it a Focus Sash to take opposing Sludge Bombs and so forth, but also made it very resilient. It took that Blizzard without going down to its Focus Sash, and then took a follow-up Stomping Tantrum. And with that combo absorbed, now Vivian has Encore Disable online against either of these Pokemon, which are both trapped in play. And Billa is now forced to do something about that particular threat and decides to call it out with Protect.
Yeah, it is a Protect on the Garchomp, while the Whimsicott is going for the Encore into the Garchomp slot here. We do see that the Gengar is going for the Disable as well into the Garchomp, just trying to get that Encore Disable down immediately as the Ninetales responds with a Freeze Dry into the Whimsicott, knocking it out and forcing the Incineroar in the back to come out. It is a 2 against 3 here, and I don't know if Vivian can get this back. This is going to be a very close game here.
Yeah, that turn was critical. Vivian had the option of maybe trying to Encore Disable the Ninetales slot or the Garchomp slot, and Billa called correctly exactly which slot they were going to go for. So like a huge turn for them for Billa to get right, and a devastating turn for Vivian with that one sliver of hope in the form of Whimsicott fading away. Garchomp can take a Shadow Ball all day, and that Incineroar is not threatening it with just a Dark Move.
Yeah, and now you just have to somehow KO this Garchomp possibly, because otherwise that Garchomp is free to just go for opposing attacks. You're gonna go for the Fake Out here to just stop this Garchomp from moving at all, while this Gengar is going for the Shadow Ball to follow it up to get this Garchomp low. It is going down to 60 HP, while that Ninetales is locking that Incineroar into that Fake Out that it just used to prevent that Garchomp from moving. This Incineroar's gonna struggle a little bit, I think.
It's on the bus, Ducky. It's on the struggle bus.
The struggle bus, we've entered it. For anyone that is curious, however, this game, Champions, has changed Fake Out to where if you Encore a Pokemon into Fake Out, it can't use it in consecutive time. Usually in the past it was allowed to use it but fail, but now it's gonna struggle instead. We may get to see it depending on if this instant can live as something. It does, okay. And we will see that Incineroar obviously proc is Citrus Berry first, maybe heal up a little to live that struggle, but it is gonna struggle into the Garchomp crucially, so it's gonna take a bit of Rough Skin as well as the recoil, just enough to get the KO onto the Incineroar passively.
Yeah, struggle targeting is random, but Struggle decided to go right into that Rough Skin Garchomp and deal 1/4 of Incin's health in recoil damage and knock it out with the additional Rough Skin damage. So that is brutal for Vivian's Incineroar.
Otherwise, you could have maybe hoped like, okay, the Incineroar lives for like maybe one more turn, but now it's a 1v3. This Gengar against the world. It's gonna KO the Garchomp here and just hope to somehow get this win. We will see what is in the back, because that Gengar does live that Freeze Dry, and with that Vivian has gotten the crucial information of what that fourth Pokemon is. Before that, it wouldn't have seen it, and it is that Rotom Wash.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is something. This is the biggest thing Vivian can get after those turns went wrong earlier in the game, is getting to see what Billa's actual plan was. It seemed like Billa was just trying to trap Vivian on the board with that Garchomp. You know, you're trapped. You're trapped here with me. I'm Garchomp.
I
trap on the board with that
tempo here.
with all those big ground moves. And here's the Shadow Ball, but it's not going to get up. Both these Pokemon can take out Gengar now.
Yeah, it is the 3-star into the Gengar just to KO it here and seal that game 1 for Billa. So now we have that game 1 for Billa, and I am curious to see what Vivian could do to adjust. I could possibly see like the Gengar in the back and maybe push the tempo early with Whimsicott. What do you think?
Yeah, it was very interesting the way that both players played it. Billa was really just trying to set up these aggressive board states where Garchomp could really decimate Vivian's team with its big ground coverage. I'm kind of surprised. I think the goal from Billa's end was to use Gengar also to prevent Palafin from getting set up. And Palafin would have been a big threat if Billa had gone for, say, the Aerodactyl mode. But without the ability to switch freely, because it doesn't have Flip Turn, through the opposing Shadow Tag, it has a really hard time becoming the hero that Vivian needed. One thing that Vivian could try to do if they wanted to get Palafin set up in particular is try to trade off the Gengars right away with that speed tie interaction right on turn 1. But ooh, that makes me nervous. So it's very interesting. Billa really making that Garchomp look like a hero against Viv's team. At least Viv's team without the rain mode.
Yeah, and it's also what I want to highlight is the fact that Billa's Ninth has put in so much work that Incineroar also doesn't have the Flare Blitz that you'd usually expect Incineroar to have, instead having the Protect for the Parasong. So Vivian either has to really go down the Parasong route and maybe see that they can work around that, or they will have to say, hey, I need to find a solution for that Ninetales a little somewhere else. Maybe it isn't that Politoed. Maybe you need to have that Palafin really become the hero you need. Whatever it is, you have to find a solution as Vivian, because that Ninetales is just so oppressive otherwise.
Yeah, it's really tricky on their end, because normally what you would like to do is switch in and out to get the rain going through the snow. But if your Pokemon other than Gengar are trapped in, you don't get to switch. That's the rules. So it's really tough. Maybe a change, even if they went for the same plan that they did that first game, maybe a change that they could institute would be not going for Fake Out immediately, because Billa, it felt like, really got the better of them with that switching in Encore and Ninetales, or switching in Ninetales and Encore. Encore is not a Pokemon. So maybe there's a way to avoid that play right away.
Yeah, we are going into game 2, and we see an immediate adjustment from Vivian's end with that Whimsicott combo,
And
as Billa is also adjusting with that shiny Aerodactyl and Garchomp combination that we talked about at the very start.
Yeah, a player like Billa playing forever, I bet they have all kinds of weird shinies hanging out in Pokemon Home, and this Aerodactyl is undoubtedly one of them. So fascinating start. No Gengar perhaps, but maybe Billa's just fainting and they're not going to spend the Mega on the Aerodactyl and going to send in Gengar later. We don't know for sure. And this Como looking like a big threat with Tailwind and Clanging Scales right away, doing big damage to either of these if Vivian decides to go for it.
We have seen that Como is still slower than a Mega Gengar at +1, so I am curious how this Como is trained. Does it maybe even outspeed a Mega Aerodactyl with that 150 base speed if it is trained into max speed? We will see that Aerodactyl immediately Mega, and we will presumably see a Tailwind here from the Whimsicott, and then we'll immediately see the interactions. So it is Como protecting, however, saying no, I don't really want to engage in this yet. So opting for the Protect, while the Whimsicott is opting for that Tailwind, and that I would have assumed it would be an attack immediately, but the Aerodactyl saying, hey, I'm just gonna match that Tailwind too, and Garchomp going for that Dragon Claw into the Como immediately. So really just a trade of Tailwinds here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It could have been Clanging Scales immediately, but wouldn't have been a KO into Aerodactyl probably, and maybe Garchomp was going to Protect. And so Vivian is thinking, well, if the Aerodactyl attacks, if the Garchomp attacks and I lose Komo's HP, then maybe I also lose my way through the game, just like in game 1. So seeing the Aerodactyl, they made the assumption, I'm not going to see Encore turn 2 the way that I did last game. I can play this safely and then threaten to Encore Billa into whatever Billa decides to do this turn. So really kind of a fascinating interaction, Viv playing it a little safe.
Yeah, and Bill is saying, I don't want to be on court at all. I'm going to switch in my 90th here, and there's nothing you can do about it as we see the snow going up. The Whimsicott, however, opting to switch instead. It is that Incineroar coming out here. However, that Intimidate obviously being negated by that White Herb from the Garchomp. And we'll see that the Garchomp is the faster one, going for that Dragon Claw into the Como. Bringing it all the way to the red, so if it did any clanging scales, that's not gonna work because HP is way too that clanging soul won't work. But clanging scales is gonna target down. It's not gonna get the KO onto the Garchomp. A very crucial survival here for Billa's side. That means your Garchomp is free to go for another Earthquake or anything. And even if that instant may want to go for the fake out, it is gonna take a bit of that rough skin, and then it can be encore too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't just willy-nilly fake out in front of the Ninetales. You don't want to get trapped in again and... Well, not trapped in again, but you don't want to be forced to switch once again, especially while those Tailwind turns are ticking down. But that's just the thing, right? Both sides have Tailwind going, and it's really going to be a question of when these Tailwinds can come back in and set up another aggressive board. I don't really know who's gotten the better here. That Garchomp is a big player for Billa's side, but the Como was also seemingly very important for Vivian, and they're short on damage. Maybe their plan is to trade off and set up a Perish Song later in the game.
Yeah, we see that Billa is yet again switching out, in this case to the Rotom. Maybe saying that, hey, I just want to Earthquake here if I get to. And the Como instead is here protecting. The Garchomp is going to be free to go for that Earthquake, as that Incineroar did not go for the fake out here to either slot. So if this Incineroar is able to hang on, which it will, it is going to proc that Citrus Berry and maybe Parting Shot here to get back into an aggressive position here for Vivian to maybe take advantage of the board state that Billa has.
Yeah, Whimsicott is capable of outspeeding this Garchomp, so it's possible that Viv is planning to get Whimsicott back in. No, it's Gengar. Gengar also obviously outspeeds Garchomp after Mega Evolving, and that Shadow Ball is unresisted by any of Billa's back Pokemon because we know he didn't bring the Incineroar. So this Shadow Ball is actually a big deal, and Como can knock a few pegs off that Rotom. The only Pokemon that really wants them switch into the combination of Shadow Ball and Clanging Scales is Ninetales, which I think Vivian would be happy to get some additional damage on, set up a Whimsicott board, and so forth. Really trying to take advantage of how dangerous the Garchomp's positioning is from this point forward. I want to note that Incineroar took the Earthquake very well from neutral attack, and getting this Gengar in just at this moment is critical.
Yes, because now Vivian is also free to go for that Mega and just trap in whatever. So Billa has to use this turn to really get into the position they want, and they will use it to switch out that Rotom into that Aerodactyl, which will be the fastest Pokemon on the field, presumably. We see that Gengar going for the Mega, so crucially that Garchomp is going for any attack here possibly. So if that Gengar did not target that Garchomp is free to go for another attack here. But it is that Garchomp going for the Protect here instead. Just stalling out the last turn of Tailwind while this Gengar tries to desperately get the KO onto the Garchomp. This Como going for Clanging Scales here as well is going to catch that Aerodactyl on switch, and how much damage is it going to do? It's going to bring it to the yellow, but not enough yet for the KO. And now both sides Tailwind is run out, and that Aerodactyl might be the fastest Pokemon on the field here.
Yeah, it's highly likely. Aerodactyl sitting at 150 base speed, as you highlighted earlier. When it Mega Evolves, it gains 20 more base speed on top of its already impressive 130. And so Tailwind Earthquake has never looked better to me, Ducky.
I do have to agree, especially with the Como so low that Gengar presumably not able to hang on from an Earthquake. The Garchomp still at neutral attack because of that wider...
It took a Parting Shot, right?
Oh yeah, no, the Rotom took the Parting Shot.
The Rotom took the Parting? Okay, well then this Earthquake is even better than I thought.
This Earthquake? Yeah, as
neutral.
We see, it's going to be highlighted. Thank you. It is Como switching out here into the Incineroar, saying, no, you're gonna go to the -1 as we thought it was before. And also, crucially, lowering the attack on the Aerodactyl as well. So even if Aerodactyl decides to go for any Rock Slides or do a Wing Beat, it is going to be lower damage here. It is just a Tailwind, however, as the Garchomp is going for an Earthquake. And I presume with the damage that it has done before, it is going to get that KO onto the Incineroar here. We'll have to see. Incineroar hangs on!
So tanky!
Oh, who allowed this cat to be this bulky? Who did
I
that?
had a suspicion after seeing that first physical attack land into Incineroar, and it took it so well. I was like, maybe it's impish with a lot of physical defense, but that's crazy. It took what, like 60 damage from a super effective Earthquake?
Yeah, I think like 60 or 70. I think it was at like 100 HP, so
Yeah.
it's like 68. That's for a super effective move from guard jump of all things. That's a tanky card.
Sure is. And you know what's wild here is that Aerodactyl just used Tailwind, but it's trapped here. So both physical Pokemon from Billa's side have been intimidated. This Gengar is still threatening both of Billa's Pokemon. I think the main concern is Viiv's Gengar is not as tanky as Billa's, significantly less HP investment, so this Fake Out is required to prevent another Earthquake.
And it does hang on despite the rough skin chip, so if this is the rock side, as it does go for the rock side, it's gonna miss the Gengar. It does connect onto the Incineroar, but I was about to say that because the Incineroar just barely hanged on, it's gonna reduce the damage from that rock side, but it doesn't even matter because the Gengar is so fast it just dodges it immediately, allowing that Gengar just Shadow Ball and KO this Aerodactyl in return. And now crucially, Billa has two Pokemon left, that Ninetales and that Rotom Wash, while Vivien is able to just bring in that Whimsicott or that Como. That Whimsicott would look really good here just to get that Tailwind Shadow Ball combination up, regain the speed advantage here, maybe lock in something into Encore afterwards, and then once you have that speed advantage, that Como is free to go for even more attacks.
Yeah, this Gengar is looking completely safe here and has taken no damage because Vivien was so clever about avoiding these Earthquakes and getting the Incineroar in at a crucial time to take an Earthquake with almost no damage absorbed. This looks beautiful for Vivien's side and really cleverly done to get these positions through the Tailwind and through the threat of that Aerodactyl.
Now, however, it is still down to who targets what. For example, that Ninetales does checkmate that Como in a sense, so if you do position it well or get it right, maybe KO that Whimsicott somehow while still surviving the attacks, you could possibly still get the win as Billa. And that Rotom is not the worst Pokemon here to have. It is really tanky. You could possibly win a 1v1 against that Gengar once the Ninetales hits a Blizzard, which it is guaranteed to get off at least one because of that Focus Sash and speed advantage right now.
Right, and these Blizzards, I mean, it's relevant. There's nothing left that Vivien has that can resist a Blizzard. The Ninetales is the biggest attacker that Billa has left, but we saw that the Whimsicott was really capable of taking hits, and we know this Gengar is not weak to ice, so Vivien can double protect for a turn, set up an Encore Disable, and then really punish whichever Pokemon it lands into and force them also to take a ride on the struggle bus. This is a classic play with Shadow Tag Team, Encore and Disable, and you could also be setting up a Perish Song here, but I don't think it's going to be necessary.
However, very crucially, Billa was very smart and did click that Encore, so even if you get Encore disabled into the Encore, I think you still have that speed advantage because of the Tailwind. Yeah, the Tailwind is still up, so you still have that speed advantage. So even if you Encore that Ninetales, for example, with Priority Prankster still making you faster.
I believe that Encore cannot Encore.
Encore can't Encore.
I believe that's the case.
Okay, so
Prevent
even
an endless
smarter.
loop.
You just dodge Encore entirely. So it's all about that Rotom Wash possibly. However, we see that Gengar switching out. It doesn't need to trap anything because it's two Pokemon left. We see the Como switch in here as the Whimsicott tries to go for the Encore here. It fails, so presumably it targeted that Ninetales.
Encore the Encore, yeah. Ooh.
Could Encore the Encore, a mechanic that really rarely comes up, but when it does, it's gonna matter a lot, as that Ninetales is gonna go for the Blizzard with that freeze on top. So, really getting punished for not knowing your interactions here. However, Whimsicott's still surviving that Hydro Pump. So maybe there is a chance that this Whimsicott could fall out. There is a Tailwind of sorts, and you just go haywire with the damage. The Tailwind did run out for Billa, so maybe that Whimsicott is even faster than Billa's. It all depends on how Vivien has trained her Pokemon. It all depends on how Billa has trained her Pokemon, and it all depends on the dice. Oh, this is down to the wire.
Yeah, seriously, I think Vivien's now right back on the back foot after looking pretty good on that second to last turn. Whimsicott going to sleep is really bad. They encored the wrong Pokemon, as in you literally couldn't encore the Ninetales into Encore, which Billa was very smart to go for on his own to prevent being able to be encored. We know that Encore has to happen before Disable as well because of Prankster. Man, this is crazy, but I think Billa might pull it out. Shadow Ball's just not going to do enough. No Blizzard allowed, though.
Yeah, the Whimsicott's still frozen here, however, that Disable targeting down into the Ninetales. Billa smart, however, goes for that Freeze Dry into the Whimsicott, just guaranteeing that knockout here. So it doesn't matter if you get that Blizzard disabled if you just went for that freeze dry, and the Rotom opting for that Thunderbolt, just getting that consistent damage into that Gengar here. It's not going to put it to a yellow, but it is a 1 against 2, and we have seen this story play out before.
Yeah, unfortunately, Gengar all single target attacks. I don't think Vivian has swapped Sludge Wave in for Disable. We just saw Disable get used. Maybe for Parasong, you'd like to have your Sludge Wave. But this looks like curtains. There's just no way for Gengar to do enough damage in enough time through Ninetales and Rotom's full HP bars. What a crazy sequence of turns to end this game.
Yeah, even if you get lucky and get that critical hit, Rotom is so tanky, it probably lives it. You go for that Perish Song, you just have to hope somehow. But even if that Perish Song would go through, since Gengar is that fastest Pokemon on the field, Billa would still win even if that Perish Song goes through. So the Freeze Dry and the Thunderbolt combination is going to get the knockout here onto the Gengar, and Billa is going to go into top cut with that game 2 win here.
Yeah, what a fascinating game. Very back and forth in game 2. Vivian did some incredibly good and very clever positioning to get these encore threats online, and then a critical messed up at the last second, or maybe the wrong read or misclick, we don't know, but a critical misstep at the last second, failing their own encore and preventing themselves from getting a big advantage, while Como just took the hit and went down for Gengar. Really a fascinating set, and really, to me, elucidating the power of Billa's Garchomp. And in this game and throughout the format, honestly, Garchomp has really been one of the big players, one of the big non-Mega players, unfortunately, since Mega Garchomp actively loses speed. But one of the big players this format. So Billa really made it look powerful there.
Yeah, and also showcasing why Aerodactyl is so much used right now. Just that speed advantage is really helpful. Just having that Mega on top here. You didn't even use it offensively, really. You only KO'd that Incineroar at 7 HP, which I think a lot of Pokemon can do. I'll just lean myself out of the window like that. And that Aerodactyl just getting that faster tailwind than that Gengar, just threatening the position onto Vivian. That was a really, really good use of that Mega Aerodactyl. I will also have to highlight, I think Vivian had a bit of a bad matchup here. I will say that it was slightly favored for Billa just because you could freely Earthquake most of the targets. But still, really cleverly played, getting that Gengar in late, having that early threat. I think it was actually with that Whimsicott and Como, right? It was a Whimsicott Como that early on just traded a lot of damage, still hanging on and just trading back and forth. To a point where Gengar could just come in and possibly sweep or even positions as well. So one play could have changed all of that for Vivian to win that game 2 and us to go into game 3.
Maybe, yeah. It's highlighting one of these critical weaknesses of the Perish Song Gengar teams. Committing a lot of resources to setting up Perish Songs and Disable Encore combos means that you don't have as many resources available for damage. And, of course, Gengar's natural problems into both Garchomp and Kingambit, which are both big parts of this format. And we saw that Garchomp weakness, as I've already highlighted, play well there. But we also saw the fact that once Vivian had spent the Clanging Scales and gone through Como's HP, it was a lot harder for them to find ways to deal enough damage to break through Billa's team. So really a tough situation. I think you're highlighting the right thing. Usually the way that Vivian would try to literally punch through damage, haha, would be using their Palafin's Jet Punch and Rain, but you can't do that when your switching is restricted. So they didn't feel comfortable bringing Politoed and Palafin together in that second game, even though Billa felt confident that he could bring the Aerodactyl. So really a fascinating setup and a real demonstration of some of the weaknesses of these Perish Song teams and why they're so difficult to play. You're actively cutting away ways to win the game that aren't Perish Song, and Vivian couldn't really win that one with Perish Song through the opposing Gengar, through the opposing Garchomp, and so forth.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it just came down to two things. Still, Mega Gengar only having one attack and doing so much work for Vivian just highlights how strong this Pokemon really is. That we've talked about it already. That Shadow attack is just really, really good. It's just warrants that whole Mega slot. And honestly, it just came down to mechanics. If you didn't know about Encore into Encore, like even I didn't know that. If you don't know that, then it's a fair assumption to just go, hey, I'm just going to Encore to Encore. And then you realize that the Encore can't Encore to Encore. Say that 3 times fast.
If we had Encore the Encore, then the Encore would have Encored the Encore. And then we would have had Encore, 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 Encore.
And then we'd have Encore, 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 Encore.
Yeah. And then it's all just Encore all the way down the line. The world is built on turtles standing upon elephants, and every one of them is named Encore. Yeah, no, that would have been fascinating. But it's true. Yeah, maybe these critical turns and those shadow balls were doing huge damage. I mean, 170 special attack is crazy. I think that's one of the wildest things about Mega Gengar, by the way, is when it Mega Evolves, it doesn't get any more. It gets a little more resilient. But the big thing that it gains is special attack and speed, along with Shadow Tag. And despite the fact that its biggest gains upon Mega Evolving are offensive, people choose to play, and indeed, it's nearly won the World Championships. People choose to play a very defensive Perish Song set pretty often when it's legal, which just kind of is such a fascinating trade-off that people make, and really, to me, an indication of how beautiful and interesting Pokemon can be as a game, that people make such a compromise, and sometimes to great success. In Viv's case, not as much. Although I don't know how much happier they would have been with Sludge Bomb. Maybe they could have knocked that Ninetales down to Sash more quickly.
Yeah. However, that was an excellent round 7. As we're going to head into that top 32 now, we will take a short break and then go into that top 32 straight up. No fun time here, unfortunately, since this has taken quite a bit of time. And yeah, so I'm excited to cast another round with you, and we're going to go into a short break here.
Mm-hmm.